Describe a scenario in your life when gender impacted your school experience.
Over the course of 3 days, I racked my brain really hard to try to remember when gender impacted my public school experience, but I couldn't think of a specific instance.
I was raised and educated to conform to my society's gender norms. That's why I never noticed bias when it was happening. I was subconsciously an active participant in the process. Gender norms were not really something I was conscious of until I went to college, or I saw a RuPaul music video, or I entered the workforce where, yes, my gender did impact the way I was treated. In Dr. Tasha A. Riley's study, Riley uncovers unconscious gender bias that teachers have between male and female students. I couldn't help but notice all of the qualities that the teachers used to describe the female students were all qualities that I recognized as how I present myself to the world, not how I really am.
Not only that, but throughout my school experience and my life, I've had this innate desire to fit into those norms.
I aim to be accommodating, nurturing, good with kids. I'm a teacher. I'm obsessed with my weight. And I definitely conform to the school game that Riley talks about. I did want to please the teacher.
It's my hypothesis that because of positive feedback from teachers and my parents' strong desire to maintain the status quo, I became a rule follower to make everyone happy.
And as I read this article, I recognized myself as more of a gender conformist, as a girl trying to make everyone happy. In fact, when teachers are describing the inappropriate ways that girls can act, catty, manipulative, and mean, more manipulative than their male peers. And these are all actual fears I have, that people might judge me and think I'm being catty, manipulative, bossy. I have like a desire to prove that I am not this way in other people's eyes. I was such a people pleaser that I didn't notice the gender biases that were happening all around me. Throughout my life, I was a top math student. And I actually loved math. I loved geometry. I loved algebra, and I was very good at it. But when I hit a roadblock in 10th, 11th grade, and I just kind of decided not to try anymore in my math classes. I had discovered theater by then, and theater was a lot more fun, and I got a lot more like emotional payoff in theater. So I stopped trying in my math classes. I didn't have teachers that recognized that I was a top math student my whole life. There's a pattern of like good math skills, and then it stops here. Like, what's going on? Let's get you back on track. Nobody ever did that for me. I did really, really well in school, but that did not translate into the real world. In fact, I was so good at school that I wanted to stay in school for as long as I could. I stayed half a semester after my 4th year, and I refused to want to go into the work world because I didn't know how to go into the work world really. And I had been through all this schooling, and I was praised so much for my grades and my efforts, but then it's like you go out into your work world, you're not praised anymore. And this ties into my interest of fixed mindset and the growth mindset, yes, from Carol Dweck's book. So if we are unconsciously putting students into boxes and praise them for being in that box for these innate behaviors that they have, innate behaviors of being a girl, we make them feel like they cannot change.
Such perceptions may also negatively influence the long-term personal development of female learners' self-esteem, career aspirations, and motivation to achieve.
Most of my working experience is in a school in New York City, an all-girls Catholic school. And I never knew how advantageous it was to have these gender schools until I listened to the TEDx talk by Elizabeth Wolfson. She references a study that shows all-girls schools teach girls the power of being a girl, and that made me really wish I could have attended an institution like that. In Brittany Doris's TEDx talk, she talks about one of her students committing suicide, and I know that's a left turn from talking about gender bias, but in recent years, and especially after the pandemic, suicide rates are up, especially amongst people identifying as a sexual minority or a gender minority, and specifically suicide rates are up in adolescents. So if teachers have these unconscious biases about gender, they are influencing their students and contributing to the problem.
Teachers have the privilege not only to teach content, but to shape the minds of their students, sometimes for the rest of their lives.
I'm going to close this video with a quote by Brittany Doris. That's what happens when you label failing students as failures. They believe it even if it's true. But instead, if we can give them something positive to focus on, we can give them an entirely different future to look into. Thank you so much.